Congratulations, you've been hired as a night shift mortician at Riverside Memorial Funeral Home. My name is Thomas, and I've been doing this job for 8 years now. 8 years of working alone with the dead while the rest of the world sleeps. When I tell people what I do for a living, they usually get this look on their face, part curiosity, part disgust, mostly fear. They ask me if it's creepy if I ever get scared, if the bodies ever move. The honest answer? Yes, but not for the reasons you'd think. I didn't plan on becoming a mortician. 5 years ago, I was selling insurance in downtown Portland, sitting in a gray cubicle under fluorescent lights, making cold calls to people who hung up on me. I had a college degree I wasn't using, student loans that were crushing me, and a girlfriend who left because she said I had no ambition. She wasn't wrong. The funeral home job came up through a temp agency. They needed someone for the night shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and nobody wanted it. The pay was decent, better than insurance, and they'd trained me on the job. All I had to do was basic prep work, maintain the facilities, and handle any after-hours deliveries. Simple stuff. I figured, how hard could it be? Riverside Memorial has been operating since 1892. It's one of those old Victorian buildings that looks exactly like what you'd expect a funeral home to look like. Tall windows, dark wood, brass fixtures that have turned green with age. During the day, it's busy with services, viewings, and families making arrangements. But at night, it's just me and the silence. The building has 4 floors. The main level has the viewing rooms, chapel, and office spaces. The second floor is storage and administrative offices. The third floor used to be the owner's residence back in the day, but now it's mostly unused. And then there's the basement. That's where I spend most of my time. The preparation rooms, cold storage, crematorium, and my little office are all down there. My job is straightforward. I receive bodies from hospitals, coroner's office, or sometimes directly from families. I do basic intake, checking paperwork, taking photographs, securing personal effects. I handle initial cleaning and dressing if needed. I maintain the refrigeration units, keep the prep rooms clean, and make sure everything's ready for the day's shift embalmers. It's methodical work. Quiet. Respectful. And for the first few months, that's all it was. The weird stuff started small. Little things you could easily dismiss. I'd hear footsteps on the floor above me. Not unusual. Old buildings creak and settle. But these sounded deliberate. Measured. Like someone walking a specific pattern. When I'd go upstairs to check, nothing. Empty rooms, locked doors. No signs anyone had been there. Sometimes the lights in the prep rooms would flicker. The electrical system is old. Probably needs updating. But they'd flicker in sequence, one room after another, like someone was walking down the hall flipping switches. I found drawers open that I knew I'd closed. Personal effects moved from where I'd placed them. Small things, easy to explain away as my own forgetfulness. The first time I saw her, I thought I was hallucinating from too much caffeine and not enough sleep. It was around 2 a.m. on a Tuesday in October. I was in prep room 3, cleaning up after processing an elderly woman who'd passed at home. Natural causes, peaceful death, family scheduled to view her the next day. Standard procedure. I was wheeling the gurney back to cold storage when I saw a movement in my peripheral vision. A figure in the hallway. Tall, slender, wearing what looked like a white dress or gown. I turned to look directly, but nothing was there. I stood there for a full minute listening. The building was silent except for the hum of the refrigeration units and the distant sound of traffic outside. I finished my work and went back to my office, telling myself it was fatigue playing tricks on me. But she came back. Over the next few weeks, I'd catch glimpses of her, always in my peripheral vision, always disappearing when I turned to look. She seemed to appear most often when I was working with female bodies, especially those who died young or unexpectedly. I started keeping notes, not in any official log, just a small notebook I kept in my pocket. Time, location, circumstances. I'm a methodical person by nature, and I wanted to understand what was happening. The pattern became clear. The woman in white appeared during cases involving sudden death, accidents, suicides. Never during natural deaths of elderly patients. Never during violent crimes. We don't handle those. They go to the county morgue. And she always appeared in the same areas. The hallway between prep rooms 2 and 3. The storage area near the old service elevator. Sometimes in the viewing rooms upstairs, but only rooms 1 and 3. I did some research. Riverside Memorial's records go back to its founding, and they keep detailed logs of everything. In 1924, a young woman named Eleanor Whitmore died in the building. She was the daughter of the funeral director at the time. According to the newspaper accounts I found at the library, she suffered from what they called melancholia, probably depression, and took her own life with laudanum while staying in the third-floor residence. Her body was prepared in what is now Prep Room 3. I started paying closer attention to Eleanor. That's what I called her, though I never confirmed it was actually her. She began appearing more frequently, and I noticed she seemed drawn to specific cases. A teenage girl who'd overdosed. Eleanor appeared in the hallway while I was processing her. A young mother killed in a car accident. Eleanor stood at the edge of viewing room 1 during my final checks. A college student who jumped from a bridge. Eleanor was there in the storage area, watching. She never interfered with my work, never made noise or moved objects. She just watched, and somehow I found it comforting rather than frightening. She felt protective, like she was making sure these women weren't alone in their final preparation. I started talking to her, quietly while I worked. Nothing dramatic, just acknowledging her presence. "Evening, Eleanor." Or, "She's going to look beautiful for her family." Simple things, respectful things. I never got a response, but I felt like she was listening. The night shift at a funeral home is isolating. You go days without meaningful human contact. Your schedule is opposite to the rest of the world. You develop relationships with silence, with routine, with the peculiarities of an old building. Eleanor became part of that routine. But Eleanor wasn't the only presence in the building. 3 months into the job, I started noticing something else. Something that felt different. Hostile. It started with the temperature drops. Prep Room 2 would suddenly become freezing, cold enough that I could see my breath. The thermostats showed normal temperatures, but the air felt like stepping into a walk-in freezer. These episodes lasted exactly 7 minutes. I timed them. Then everything would return to normal. During these cold spells, I'd hear whispers. Not words I could understand, just the sound of voices. Multiple voices, overlapping, urgent. Like people arguing in a language I didn't recognize. And then there were the incidents. Bodies moved from where I'd positioned them. Not dramatically, an arm shifting position, a head turned to the side. But these were bodies in rigor mortis. They don't move on their own. Personal effects would disappear and reappear in impossible places. A wedding ring removed from a body would show up in a different prep room. Reading glasses would vanish from my workspace and appear in a sink upstairs. The worst was what happened to the faces. I came in one Thursday night to find 3 bodies I'd prepared the previous evening had their eyes open. All 3. Bodies don't do that on their own after proper preparation. Someone or something had opened their eyes. But it was the expression that bothered me most. They all had the same look, a slight smile, almost smirking, like they knew something I didn't. I closed their eyes, resecured the jaw closures, and completed my documentation. But I started staying closer to the prep rooms during my shifts. Whatever was causing this seemed to target my work specifically. The escalation came during a particularly difficult case in November. We received a man named David Chun, 34 years old, found dead in his apartment. Apparent suicide by hanging. He'd been there for several days before anyone found him, so the body was in poor condition. These cases are always challenging, both technically and emotionally. I was working alone in Prep Room 2, doing the initial assessment. The air conditioning was running at full blast, but the room felt warm and humid. Sweat was dripping down my back despite the temperature controls showing 65 degrees. That's when the whispering started. Louder than before. Urgent. And this time I could make out words. "Not alone, not alone, not alone." The lights began flickering in sequence. All 6 prep rooms, one after another, faster and faster until it looked like a strobe light effect. The refrigeration units started cycling on and off, creating a rhythmic humming that sounded almost like breathing. And then I saw him. Standing in the corner of Prep Room 2 was a man in a dark suit. Tall, pale, with deep-set eyes that reflected the flickering lights like mirrors. He wasn't transparent like Eleanor. He looked solid, real, present. He was smiling that same smile I'd seen on the corrupted bodies. "You're doing good work here, Thomas," he said. His voice was smooth, conversational, like we were colleagues discussing the weather. Very respectful, very thorough. I appreciate attention to detail. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I just stood there holding my clipboard while this impossible person talked to me. "But you've been interfering. My arrangements get disturbed. My messages get erased. It's becoming inconvenient. I found my voice. Who are you? I'm someone who's been using this facility much longer than you have. Think of me as middle management. I handle the transitions for certain clients. Make sure they understand their new circumstances. He walked closer. Each step echoed in the prep room despite the concrete floors that normally absorb sound. The suicides, Thomas. The accidents that weren't quite accidents. The people who left this world carrying guilt, anger, regret. They need guidance. They need to understand that their suffering isn't over. It's just beginning. I realized what he was saying. He was claiming responsibility for the disturbances, for the opened eyes, the moved bodies, the changed expressions. He was tormenting people who were already dead. Why? I managed to ask. Because I can. Because they're vulnerable. Because suffering is the only constant between this world and the next. And someone needs to explain that to them. He was standing directly in front of me now. I could smell something rotten, sweet, like flowers left too long in water. But you keep fixing things. Closing eyes. Arranging faces. Showing them dignity. It interferes with my work. That's my job, I said. I treat them with respect. Your job, he said, is about to change. The lights stopped flickering. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. My breath came out in visible puffs. Starting tomorrow night, you're going to help me. When I arrange someone, you leave them that way. When I open their eyes, you keep them open. When I position their limbs, you don't move them. You're going to let me do my work. No, I said. It came out stronger than I felt. He laughed. Oh, Thomas, you think you have a choice. The room went completely dark. When the lights came back on, he was gone. But David Chen's body had changed. His arms were crossed over his chest in an X pattern. His eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling, and his mouth was twisted into that horrible smile. I spent the rest of my shift returning him to a peaceful position. Every time I finished, I'd check on the other prep rooms. By morning, I'd repositioned David 6 times. Each time, he'd been returned to that tortured pose. I went home that morning knowing I was in a war I didn't understand. The entity, I started calling him the supervisor, made good on his threat. Every shift became a battle. I'd arrive to find bodies arranged in disturbing positions, limbs twisted unnaturally, faces contorted in expressions of fear or pain, personal effects arranged in patterns that felt ritualistic, threatening. But I also had help. Eleanor became more active. She started appearing directly in my line of sight, pointing toward problems I needed to address. Sometimes I'd find a body restored to peaceful position before I'd even discovered it had been disturbed, and I'd catch a glimpse of her white dress disappearing around a corner. She was fighting him too. The battle escalated over the following weeks. The supervisor would corrupt my work during the night. Eleanor and I would fix it. He'd retaliate by targeting multiple bodies at once, spreading his influence throughout the building. We'd split up, me handling the prep rooms while Eleanor worked upstairs in the viewing areas. It sounds insane, but we developed a system, a partnership. I learned that Eleanor was stronger in areas where she'd spent time in life. The third-floor residence, the main chapel, viewing rooms 1 and 3 where she'd attended services as a child. The supervisor's power seemed centered in the basement, particularly the older sections of the building where bodies had been stored since the 1800s. I also learned that both entities were affected by my intentions. When I worked with genuine respect for the deceased, Eleanor's presence grew stronger. When I rushed through procedures or showed disregard for the bodies, the supervisor gained influence. My work became a form of prayer. Every action had to be deliberate, respectful, loving. I treated each body as if they were my own family member. I spoke to them, explaining what I was doing, apologizing for any indignity, ensuring they knew they were being cared for. And it worked. Eleanor's presence grew more solid, more real. The supervisor's manifestations became less frequent, less powerful. But he wasn't giving up. The confrontation came in January, during one of the worst snowstorms in Portland's history. The city was shut down, roads impassable. I was alone in the building with 4 bodies. 2 elderly patients who died naturally, a middle-aged man who'd had a heart attack, and a 17-year-old girl named Jessica who'd been hit by a drunk driver. Jessica was the target. I could feel at the moment her body arrived. The temperature in the prep room dropped. The lights dimmed, and I could hear the supervisor's whispers before I even began my work. She was going to art school, Thomas. Full scholarship. First person in her family to attend college. All those dreams, all that potential, cut short by some random drunk who'll probably serve 6 months and get parole. Don't you think she deserves to be angry? Don't you think she should carry that rage with her? I started the intake procedure. Photographs, documentation, removal of personal effects. Jessica was wearing a small silver necklace with a paintbrush charm. I placed it carefully in the personal effects envelope. She could have been great, Thomas. Could have created beautiful things. Now she's just meat on a table. Just another casualty of a meaningless world. Let me show her that truth. Let me teach her about the real nature of existence. I continued working, washing, positioning, preparing for the embalmer who'd arrive in the morning. I talked to Jessica while I worked, telling her about the arrangements her family was making, about how loved she was, about how many people had already called to express condolences. The supervisor's whispers grew louder, more insistent. The temperature continued dropping until ice began forming on the metal surfaces. My hands were shaking from the cold, making it difficult to work. You can't save them all, Thomas. You can't protect everyone from the truth. Death is suffering. Existence is meaningless. Let me show them what they need to see. That's when Eleanor appeared. Not in my peripheral vision, but directly in front of me, solid and real. She was young, maybe 20, with dark hair and kind eyes. She was wearing a simple white dress from the 1920s, and she was beautiful. She placed her hand over mine on Jessica's forehead. Her touch was warm, real, alive. Tell her about the scholarship, Eleanor said. Her voice was soft but clear. So I did. I told Jessica about the art school she'd been planning to attend. I described the paintings her teacher said she might create, the lives she might touch through her art. I talked about her family's pride, their love, their plans to establish a scholarship in her name. The cold began to recede. The whispers faded. Tell her about the beauty she's already created, Eleanor continued. I talked about the sketches found in Hizga's room. Portraits of friends, landscapes from family trips, studies of her grandmother's hands. Art that showed love, joy, connection. Tell her she's not alone. I looked around the prep room. Eleanor was still there, solid and present. But now I could see others. Faint figures standing around the table. An elderly woman who looked like Jessica. A young man in military uniform. A middle-aged woman in nurse's scrubs. Family members. People who'd gone before. People waiting to welcome her. The supervisor appeared one final time, but he looked smaller now, less solid. This changes nothing, he said. There will be others. There will always be others who die angry, confused, afraid. I'll be waiting for them. So will we, Eleanor replied. And then they were all gone. The prep room returned to normal temperature. The lights stopped flickering. I was alone with Jessica, who looked peaceful, serene, ready for her family to say goodbye. That was 6 months ago. The supervisor still tries to influence cases occasionally. Bodies of people who died violently, suddenly, unfairly. But Eleanor and I have developed our routine. We work together to ensure everyone receives dignity, respect, and love in their final preparation. Sometimes I see other spirits, family members, friends, even strangers who simply refuse to let someone face eternity alone. The funeral home has become a kind of way station where love wins over fear, where connection defeats isolation. My job hasn't really changed. I still do intake, preparation, and maintenance. I still work alone through the night while the rest of the world sleeps. But now I understand that I'm not really alone. None of us are. The dead deserve dignity. They deserve love. They deserve to be reminded that their lives mattered, that they touched others, that they're not forgotten. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they'll remind you of the same thing. Now, about your first shift tomorrow night. There are some things they probably didn't mention in your training. First, always speak to the bodies while you work. Tell them what you're doing. Explain the process. Reassure them that they're being cared for. It matters more than you might think. Second, if you see a woman in white, don't be afraid. That's Eleanor. She's been helping here longer than anyone. She'll guide you if you let her. Third, if the temperature drops suddenly and you hear whispers, start talking to whoever you're working with. Tell them about their life, their family, their accomplishments. Focus on love, connection, meaning. The whispers will fade. Fourth, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, if a body's position has changed, if personal effects have moved, if someone's expression looks disturbed, fix it. Take as much time as you need. This work can't be rushed. And finally, remember why you're here. You're not just preparing bodies for burial. You're helping people transition from this world with dignity. You're showing love to those who can no longer ask for it. You're fighting against the forces that want to convince us that life is meaningless and death is just suffering. You're doing sacred work, whether you realize it or not. Your first few weeks might be challenging. The building has its own rhythms, its own personality. But if you approach the work with genuine respect and compassion, you'll be fine. Better than fine. You'll be part of something important. I'll be here for another month before I transfer to the day shift. The company offered me a promotion, better hours, more responsibility. But honestly, I'll miss the night work. I'll miss the quiet, the solitude, the sense of purpose. I'll miss Eleanor, but I know she'd take care of you like she took care of me. And maybe someday, when your time here is done, you'll pass along what you've learned to whoever comes after you. That's how it works at Riverside Memorial. Knowledge passed down through the night shift workers. Unwritten rules. Unspoken understandings. Welcome to the team. And remember, you're never really working alone. The dead are counting on you. Don't let them down.